Hello and welcome to the Intelligent Gentleman Podcast. I am your host, Mil Walker, and thank you for joining me again for another amazing episode. And it's only amazing because of you, the people who support it and the people who listen and the people who, constantly day to day help me to refine who I am. I appreciate you all and I thank you for what you do. So I just wanted to talk a little bit today about being who you are and how that doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice who you want to be. And I know that kind of sounds weird, right? Being who you are and then sacrificing who you want to be, right? But I've been reached out to a few different times by people, and they have asked me this question about letting go of certain things. To them is hard, and they feel like they're letting go of a piece of themselves. And so this is part of that conversation. And so I just wanted to kind of bring it to you all and have this conversation so that we can be aware that this is not something that's just on your mind or my mind. It's circulating out here, right? And people have to understand, like, this is something that could cause a lot of harm if not understood in the proper way. And so what I said to them was, basically, as you grow into who you are becoming, what you realize is that what you're actually letting go of are the pieces that weren't really you, but you were holding on to because of some reason. And I do have a podcast on this topic in more depth, where I share about the different mindsets, right? And one of those mindsets is the victim mindset, right? So we'll talk about that for just a second. We'll just kind of leave it there, because the rest of that content is available to you if you want to go back and watch it. But when you start to move into who you're becoming in your divineness, what's divine about you, right? Then you actually have to realize that you're letting go of things that no longer suit where you're going. And that's why people kind of say that, right? They know that instinctually, but sometimes it's hard for people to kind of place that in their life. Like where does that fall in as a puzzle piece, right? And so when you're navigating these changes and you start to feel that difference and you start to feel, wow, I'm not really feeling the things that I used to be feeling anymore. Like some of these things are just really just kind of, stuff I don't even want to kind of deal with, right? Then that's when you start paying attention. You be mindful, right? That's why technically, that's not when you start to be mindful. You should practice mindfulness all the time. But if you use what you've practiced and you focus in on these thoughts and these experiences that you're having that cause you to feel that way, right? That's when you start to understand and you start to see certain things and you say, wow, okay, so I'm feeling this way about, and I'll just use myself as an example. So I used to find myself in the club with some of my boys and I'd be sitting there, I'd be chilling, I'm just cooling, listening to the music, we having a good time, whatever, but as I just looked around and the more I looked around, I just saw the same things over and over and over. Like it was the same thing over and over and over. And in my mind, I'm just saying to myself, why do I come here to do the same thing over and over and over again, right? Why am I not making a better use of my time? Why am I not? Because I know I can, right? It's not a matter of me not knowing it, because I know that. So, I had already gotten to that point. So once I was at that point, I started realizing, I'm like, wow, why am I not doing something better with my time? Because I know what this is going to be. I absolutely know what this is going to be. And let's just to show you, to illustrate the wisdom. Back when I was in high school, I was a class clown. I tried to skip school. I didn't want to be there. But when I was there, I took the tests. I passed them. I didn't study for them, right? The teacher had questions, and they would call themselves catching me off guard while I was clowning in class, and they would ask me a question, and I would answer, and I'd have the right answer. And so one time, this happened more than one time, but one time my teacher brought me out and said to me, Milt, why are you always acting up in class? You know all the information. You know it. You could pass the test. If it wasn't for you, but they're asking me this question, right? And I'm a child. All I know is, how I'm feeling, right? And I can't really place it, but, I just know that I'm not really feeling this like that, right? And I had came into some knowledge and understood certain things already, like the fact that, I didn't necessarily have to go to school, right? But with all that being said, it did do something to me. So like before I was supposed to graduate, I ended up getting my GED like a year before I was supposed to graduate, because if I had went ahead and just went with the graduation plan, I would have been getting it later than when I was supposed to graduate. So I actually went ahead and got my GED early so that I didn't have to worry about that, and so I can move on, right? It was, again, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, they say I need to get this. Let me go ahead and get this, get that out the way, and let's keep it moving. You know what I mean? And so I did. I took the test. I didn't study for it. Didn't study for the GED, placed in the high percentile. Didn't study for the SAT, placed in the high percentile. But in hindsight, going back to the beginning part of the conversation, in hindsight, what I learned was this. I was severely bored. I was severely unchallenged. And the reason why I was unchallenged is not completely their fault, but the reason why I was unchallenged was because they saw my behavioral problems as greater than my potential, right? And so they never really said or put me into a position to be like, okay, well, let's challenge you more, right? They didn't do that because, quote unquote, the systemic way that the educational system is set up, it's not set up to do that, to really recognize that or to facilitate that, even if people do recognize that, right? So bringing it back to the point of the conversation, when you are growing into who you are, and as I'm sitting in this, I felt the same way. I felt the same way I felt in school. I felt unchallenged. I felt like I could call out everything that was going to happen. Oh, that dude finna talk to that girl. That girl finna come over here try to talk to me. My homeboy, them, they gonna be tripping out, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Just calling the plays like, watching the game, And I'm just, which I was, but I'm just saying, I'm just calling this plays I'm just okay, something gotta give. I gotta think of something else, because this ain't it right here. You know what I mean? And it still took me some time to really kind of come out of that, because, of course, the culturalization of a lot of these things kept me locked into it like that, right? It was a part of a routine. It was part of me being and hanging with my homeboys. They were doing it, so I just pretty much did it by default. You know what I mean? A lot of times, like, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes they want to ride with me, so they jumping in my car, whatever. They like jumping in, sometimes we jumping in their car, you know what I'm saying? We ride deep, whatever. You know what I mean? Trying to, just really just enjoy it. But at the same time, it was really something that caused me to lose a lot of time that I could have been spending towards something a lot more valuable, right? And not to say having fun and hanging with your boys and developing those relationships are not valuable, but it's not as valuable as developing yourself. So bringing us back to what I was saying, as you develop yourself and as you begin to feel those feelings of doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? Knowing how it's going to go, things just kind of, on auto mode, you know that you're about to move to something different. Because you're either going to move to something different. Well, let me put it like this. If you are aware of that, then you are about to move to something different. But if you're not aware of it, then you're not aware of it. You're just kind of stuck in the cycle. But if you're aware of it, you're about to move to something different because it's not going to sit right with you. You're going to be uncomfortable. Now, does that something different have to be for your benefit? Not necessarily. Could it be something for your detriment? It absolutely could. So, because some people, they get bored and they do something not smart. And then there are times where, you get bored and you're like, hey, kind of like what I did. Hey, I don't want to do this no more. Let me find something else I want to do. Right? And so being a student, being a person who seeks truth, that's what I did. And as I was doing this, I started to strip away pieces that I had put on that correspond with the way that I was living then. That I was living then, not the way I wanted to live. I knew how I wanted to live. I'm looking at all this stuff. People, I'm like, dang, that's what I want. I want to be like that. I want to be moving around and be cool and not have to worry about stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, being in the street, worrying about what everybody doing, making sure ain't nothing gonna come back around. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of stuff to worry about. It's a lot of stuff to worry about. And another thing I tell these kids, everybody can't be on top in the street. Everybody can't be on top. So everybody else is fighting. They're fighting. They're literally fighting whether they want to or not. Even if you're in a team, you fighting with the next team or whatever to make it to the top. That's what you're doing. You fighting to be at the top. You competing for whatever it is, right? Whether it's the fame, whether it's the money, whether it's the glory, whether it's the whatever. You competing with someone for that. So I say that to say this. When you start to strip those pieces away, you have to understand what's happening. And I like to describe it like I see a sculptor as he sculpts a clay model. You're stripping away all the inessential pieces in order to reveal the truth, which is the truth in this instance is who you are. And with that being said, peace. It's the Intelligent Gentleman. I'll speak with y'all on the next one.